So like we said, something slightly different today. Darren started our Radical Simple Discipleship series looking at sex a couple of weeks ago. He said that I will be doing a second preach talking in part about sex and singleness. Just to say this isn't that. That's going to be in 3 weeks' time in May. But it is a preach in part about sex. Many people don't know that there is a book that comes in the middle of the Bible that is in part a delighted celebration of sex, this thing that God has made. It's called Solomon's Song of Songs. It comes roughly around the middle, shortly after Psalms and Ecclesiastes. And the plan for this morning is I'm going to say a little bit about it, and then a crowd of people are going to come. We're going to read the whole thing through together, and then I'll finish just with a few thoughts at the end of it. And so this is a book that begins, "Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth." It's a book that is in part about the excited, passionate love and desire of a woman for her bridegroom, a man for her bride. My wife Hannah's tongue-in-cheek summary of what this book's about was, "I'm hot, you're hot, yum, yum, yum." It is more than that, but it's an anticipation and consummation of marriage. It's a celebration of the goodness of sex. It's a warning against treating sex casually. And it's also a book that's about what we've been singing about this morning and hearing about this morning, the astonishing depth of God's love for his people, the intensity of God's feelings, his desire to the people that he's made and that he gave his only son, Jesus, to save. The delight that intimacy and relationship with God brings to him and brings to us. If this book were missing from the Bible, we'd be poorer for it, which is a shame then that actually quite few people have read it relatively. It's one of those books that people can go through the Bible and think, oh, I can skip that bit, which is dangerous thinking when it comes to any part of the Bible. But you can understand it's not just a simple story to read, it's a song, it's poetry. And even if you like poetry, this is poetry that was written in the Middle East over 2,500 years ago. This is not One Direction's "That's What Makes You Beautiful." This is not "Shall I Compare You to a Summer's Day." This is a song, a poem where a besotted young man says to his love, "Your hair is like a flock of goats. Your teeth are like a flock of sheep coming up from the river. Each one of them has its twin." Where he says to his love, "I liken you to a mare among Pharaoh's chariots." And you can imagine the young ladies today skipping off to their friends. "He said I was like a horse." I'd meant to bring in a book with a quote about that, but it was one commentator saying something along the lines of where she looks down on her own physical appearance, where she makes light of it. He's saying, no, I liken you to a mare among Pharaoh's chariots. And of course, there weren't any mares among Pharaoh's chariots because he wrote, a mare would have sent all the stallions into a frenzy of excitement. He's saying not only does he find this woman attractive, but others do too. Where he says about, teeth like a flock of sheep. He's getting at, they're just lovely white teeth, and you've got all of them, which is nothing to take for granted in an ancient Middle Eastern country girl. We need understanding as we read this. This is a different approach to poetry. The comparisons are often not like you're exactly like that thing, but they're comparing kind of value and excellence and dignity. So try and keep that in mind as we go through. There's different interpretations on the book, who wrote it and what exactly is going on. We're not going to get too much into that today. There's parts in the middle where it's not clear if what's going on is a dream or if it's really happening. We're not going to get so much into that, but I do want us to look out for this delight that they find in one another, this honoring of one another with their words, this unashamed physical attraction that the man and the woman in the song have for one another. And after we've read it through, we're going to take a look at where do we find the gospel in all of this? Where does Jesus come into all of this? So that's the plan. I'm going to invite our crowd of readers up. And when it's going to be starting, I think, just looking around. Nick was going to join us. I think that Melody's unwell at home today, so he's not able to be here. So Darren might be filling in for his bits. Yeah.
Okay. Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for your love is more delightful than wine. Pleasing is the fragrance of your perfumes. Your name is like perfume poured out. No wonder the young women love you. Take me away with you. Let us hurry. Let the king bring me into his chambers.
We rejoice and delight in you. We will praise your love more than wine.
How right they are to adore you. Dark am I, yet lovely, daughters of Jerusalem. Dark like the tents of Kedar, like the tent curtains of Solomon. Do not stare at me because I am dark, because I am darkened by the sun. My mother's sons were angry with me and made me take care of the vineyards. My own vineyard I had to neglect. Tell me, you whom I love, where you graze your flock, and where you rest your sheep at midday. Why should I be like a veiled woman beside the flocks of your friends?
If you do not know, most beautiful woman, follow the tracks of the sheep and graze your young goats by the tents of your shepherds.
I liken you, my darling, to a mare among Pharaoh's chariots' horses. Your cheeks are beautiful with earrings, your neck with strings of jewels. We will make your earrings of gold studded with silver.
While the king was at his table, my perfume spread its fragrance. My beloved is to me a sachet of myrrh resting between my breasts. My beloved is to me a cluster of henna blossoms from the vineyards of En-gedi.
How beautiful you are, my beloved. Oh, how charming. How beautiful you are, my darling. Oh, how beautiful. Your eyes are doves.
How handsome you are, my beloved. Oh, how charming, and how our bed is verdant.
The beams of our house are cedars. Our rafters are firs.
I'm a rose of Sharon, a lily of the valleys.
Like a lily among thorns is my darling among the young women.
Like an apple tree among the trees of the forest is my beloved among the young men. I delight to sit in his shade, and his fruit is sweet to my taste. Let him lead me to the banquet hall, and let his banner over me be love. Strengthen me with raisins, refresh me with apples, for I am faint with love. His left arm is under my head, and his right arm embraces me.
Daughters of Jerusalem, I charge you, by the gazelles and by the does of the field, do not arouse or awaken love until it so desires. Listen, my beloved, look, here he comes, leaping across the mountains, bounding over the hills. My beloved is like a gazelle or a young stag. Look, there he stands behind our wall, gazing through the windows, peering through the lattice.
My beloved spoke and said to me, "Arise, my darling, my beautiful one, come with me. See the winter pass, the rains are over and gone. Flowers appear on the earth, the season of singing has come. The cooing of doves is heard on our lands. The fig tree forms its early fruit. Its blossoming vines spread their fragrance. Arise, come, my darling, my beautiful one, come with me."
My dove in the cleft of the rock, in the hiding places on the mountainside, show me your face. Let me hear your voice, for your voice is sweet and your face is lovely. Catch for us the foxes, the little foxes that ruin the vineyards, our vineyards that are in bloom.
My beloved is mine, and I am his. He browses among the lilies. Until the day breaks and the shadows flee, turn, my beloved, and be like a gazelle or a young stag on the rugged hills. All night long on my bed, I looked for the one my heart loves. I looked for him, but did not find him. I will get up now and go about the city, through its streets and squares. I will search for the one my heart loves. So I looked for him, but did not find him.
Watchmen found me as they made their rounds in the city. Have you seen the one my heart loves? Scarcely had I passed them when I found the one my heart loves. I held him and would not let him go, till I had brought him to my mother's house, to the room of the one who conceived me. Daughters of Jerusalem, I charge you, by the gazelles and the does of the field, do not arouse or awaken love until it so desires.
Who is coming up from the wilderness like a column of smoke, perfumed with myrrh and incense, made from all the spices of the merchant? Look, it is Solomon's carriage, escorted by 60 warriors, the noblest of Israel, all of them wearing the sword, all experienced in battle, each with his sword at his side, prepared for the terrors of the night.
King Solomon made for himself the carriage. He made it of wood from Lebanon. Its posts he made of silver, its base of gold. Its seat was upholstered with purple, its interior inlaid with love. Daughters of Jerusalem, come out and look, your daughters of Zion. Look on King Solomon wearing a crown, the crown with which his mother crowned him on the day of his wedding, the day his heart rejoiced.
How beautiful you are, my darling. Oh, how beautiful. Your eyes behind your veils are doves. Your hair is like a flock of goats descending from the hills of Gilead. Your teeth are like a flock of sheep just shorn, coming from the washing. Each has its twin, not one of them is alone.
Your lips are like scarlet ribbon. Your mouth is lovely. Your temple behind your veil are like the halves of a pomegranate. Your neck is like the Tower of David, built with courses of stone. On it hang 1,000 shields, all of them shields of warriors.
Your breasts are like two fawns, like twin fawns of a gazelle that browse among the lilies. Until the day breaks and the shadows flee, I will go to the mountain of myrrh and to the hill of incense.
You're altogether beautiful, my darling. There is no flaw in you. Come with me from Lebanon, my bride. Come with me from Lebanon. Descend from the crest of Amana, from the top of Seneh to the summit of Hermon, from the lion's den and the mountain hounds of leopards.
You have stolen my heart, my sister, my bride. You have stolen my heart with one glance of your eyes, with one jewel of your necklace. How delightful is your love, my sister, my bride. How much more pleasing is your love than wine, and the fragrance of your perfume more than any spice. Your lips drop sweetness as the honeycomb, my bride. Milk and honey are under your tongue. The fragrance of your garments is like the fragrance of Lebanon.
You are a garden locked up, my sister, my bride. You are a spring enclosed, a sealed fountain. Your plants are an orchard of pomegranates with choice fruits, with henna and nard and saffron and calamus and cinnamon, with every kind of incense tree, with myrrh and aloes and all the finest spices. You are a garden fountain, a well of flowing water streaming down from Lebanon.
Awake, north wind, and come, south wind, blow on my garden, that its fragrance may spread everywhere. Let my beloved come into his garden and taste its choice fruits.
I have come into my garden, my sister, my bride. I have gathered my myrrh with my spice. I have eaten my honeycomb and my honey. I have drunk my wine and my milk.
Eat, friends, and drink. Drill your fill of love.
I slept, but my heart was awake. Listen, my beloved is knocking. Open to me, my sister, my darling, my dove, my flawless one. My head is drenched with dew, my hair with the dampness of the night. I have taken off my robe. Must I put it on again? I have washed my feet. Must I soil them again?
My beloved thrust his hand through the latch opening. My heart began to pound for him. I arose to open for my beloved, and my hands dripped with myrrh, my fingers with flowing myrrh on the handles of the bolt.
I opened for my beloved, but my beloved had left. He was gone. My heart sank at his departure. I looked for him, but did not find him. I called him, but he did not answer. The watchmen found me as they made their rounds in the city. They beat me, they bruised me, they took away my cloak. Those watchmen of the walls, daughters of Jerusalem, I charge you, if you find my beloved, what will you tell him? Tell him I am faint with love.
How is your beloved better than others, most beautiful of women? How is your beloved better than others, that you are so charge us?
My beloved is radiant and ruddy, outstanding among 10,000. His head is purest gold, his hair is wavy and black as a raven. His eyes are like doves by the water streams, washed in milk, mounted like jewels. His cheeks are like beds of spice, yielding perfume. His lips are like lilies dripping with myrrh.
His arms are like rods of gold set with topaz. His body is like polished ivory, decorated with lapis lazuli. His legs are pillars of marble, set on bases of pure gold. His appearance is like Lebanon, choice as its cedars. His mouth is sweetness itself. He is altogether lovely. This is my beloved. This is my friend, daughters of Jerusalem.
Where is your beloved gone, most beautiful of women? Which way did your beloved turn, that we may look for him with you?
My beloved has gone down to his garden, to the beds of spices, to browse in the gardens and to gather lilies. I am my beloved's, and my beloved is mine. He browses among the lilies.
You are as beautiful as Tirzah, my darling, as lovely as Jerusalem, as majestic as troops with banners. Turn your eyes from me, they overwhelm me. Your hair is like a flock of goats descending from Gilead. Your teeth are like a flock of sheep coming up from the washing. Each has its twin, not one of them is missing.
Your temples behind your veil are like the halves of a pomegranate. 60 queens may be there, and 80 concubines, and virgins beyond number. But my dove, my perfect one, is unique, the only daughter of her mother, the favourite of the one who bore her. The young women saw her and called her blessed. The queens and the concubines praised her.
Who is this that appears like the dawn, fair as the moon, bright as the sun, majestic as the stars in procession?
I went down to the grove of nut trees to look at the new growth in the valley, to see if the vines had budded or the pomegranates were in bloom. Before I realized it, my desire set me among the royal chariots of my people.
Come back, O Shulamite. Come back, that we may gaze on you.
Why would you gaze on the Shulamite, as on the dance of the Mahanaim? How beautiful your sandaled feet, O prince's daughter. Your graceful legs are like jewels, the work of an artist's hands. Your navel is a rounded goblet that never lacks blended wine. Your waist is a mound of wheat encircled by lilies.
Your breasts are like two fawns, like twin fawns of a gazelle. Your neck is like an ivory tower. Your eyes are the pools of Heshbon. By the gate of Bath-rabbim, your nose is like the tower of Lebanon, looking toward Damascus. Your head crowns you like Mount Carmel. Your hair is like royal tapestry. The king is held captive by its tresses.
How beautiful you are and how pleasing, my love, with your delights. Your stature is like that of the palm, and your breasts like clusters of fruit. I said, I will climb the palm tree and I will take hold of its fruit. May your breasts be like clusters of grapes on the vine, the fragrance of your breath like apples, and your mouth like the best wine.
May the wine go straight to my beloved, flowing gently over lips and teeth. I belong to my beloved, and his desire is for me. Come, my beloved, let us go to the countryside. Let us spend the night in the villages. Let us go early to the vineyards to see if the vines have budded, if their blossoms have opened, and if the pomegranates are in bloom. There I will give you my love. The mandrakes send out their fragrance, and at our door is every delicacy, both new and old, that I have stored up for you, my beloved.
If only you were to me like a brother, who was nursed at my mother's breasts. Then if I found you outside, I would kiss you, and no one would despise me. I would lead you and bring you to my mother's house, she who has taught me. I would give you spiced wine to drink, the nectar of my pomegranates. His left arm is under my head, and his right arm embraces me. Daughters of Jerusalem, I charge you, do not arouse or awaken love until it so desires.
Who is this coming up from the wilderness, leaning on her beloved?
Under the apple tree I roused you. There your mother conceived you. There she was in labor. There she who was in labor gave you birth. Place me like a seal over your heart, like a seal on your arm. For love is as strong as death, its jealousy unyielding as the grave. It burns like blazing fire, like a mighty flame. Many waters cannot quench love. Rivers cannot sweep it away. If one were to give all the wealth of one's house for love, it would be utterly scorned.
We have a little sister, and her breasts are not yet grown.
What shall we do for our sister on the day she is spoken for? If she is a wall, we will build towers of silver on her. If she is a door, we will enclose her with panels of cedar.
I am a wall, and my breasts are like towers. Thus I have become in his eyes like one bringing contentment. Solomon had a vineyard in Baal-Hamon, and he let out his vineyard to tenants. Each was to bring for its fruit 1,000 shekels of silver. But my own vineyard is mine to give. The 1,000 shekels are for you, Solomon, and 200 are for those who tend its fruit.
You who dwell in the gardens with friends in attendance, let me hear your voice.
Come away, my beloved, and be like a gazelle or like a young stag on the spice-laden mountains.
Thank you so much to all our readers. Thank you for making that very straightforward. That was really helpful. So what do you think? If you've not read it before or heard it read out, are you surprised to find passages like these in the middle of the Bible? Are you? I mean, some of it, parts of it are foreign to us, the way that things are expressed, some of the phrases that are used. Lots of it is really evocative. Lots of it does speak to us, speaks to our hearts, even without too much explanation. There's certainly parts where a study Bible can be helpful, like, what's she getting at? I wish you were like a brother to me. And maybe it's that in their culture, like, romantic kissing out in public was not really appropriate, and so it's not the same, but at least with a sibling, at least you can express affection to them publicly or something. I'm not quite sure. What's this bit about the little sister and building walls and battlements and doors and things? I think it's imagery of defending and protecting honor and virginity and this desire for their younger sisters, younger women to embrace a godly ideal for sex and marriage. And like at the end where we're reading about this woman saying that she's like a wall, her breasts are towers. I think it's at least partly saying that she's kept herself for marriage, and that both in her eyes and her husband's eyes, that's a good thing. But I don't want to dwell too much on lots of the specifics. I really do want to look at where's the gospel in all of this. And in part, I think it's that Jesus really does rescue everything. So for all that sex has been mucked up by sin, it was made by God to be good. And that in its right place and rightly approached, sex is wonderful. It really is. It's to be enjoyed. On the cross, Jesus became sin for us so that we might become the righteousness of God, so that all our disordered desires get straightened out by Jesus. All our disordered desires towards sex, they all get straightened out by him so that we can live in a way that honors God's good design and have fuller and richer lives for it. So if you're reading that as a married person and thinking, I wish my relationship, I wish my sex life could be something like that. The desire could be something like that. If you're single or you're married and you're reading it and thinking, I wish that I could exercise the kind of restraint and self-control that they encourage us to. Well, there's good news for you. Because that's exactly the kind of life that Jesus does desire for you. And it's exactly the kind of life that the Holy Spirit can lead you towards living. There's good news because of the gospel for us. But that's not all, because this is all pointing to an idealized marriage, this man and woman who utterly delight in each other. They so long for each other, they love each other. And the Bible, in lots of places, uses the language of marriage to talk about God and his people. So Isaiah speaks to his people Israel, and he says to them, your maker is your husband. This surprising language. He's speaking of himself. Your creator, your maker is your husband. Hosea and Ezekiel, God speaks to his people through them, saying that in turning away from God, his people are like a promiscuous wife, an adulterous wife who has turned away from her husband and has squandered her body and her affections on other men. And there's language in those books it's like painful to read, language of nakedness and shame and prostitution. And yet, despite their rejection of God, God would cover their sins, that he would pay for their guilt and win them back to himself. That it's telling us that he's seeing in his people the full reality of their sins. He's not got like rose-tinted view of them. He sees all the ugliness of what we've done. He sees all the ugliness of his people's sin. And yet, at the same time, he is still able to see his people as the man in the song sees his beloved. He's still able to see his people, for all their flaws and the wretchedness of their sin, as desirable, as worth knowing and being known by, as worth having at any cost, even the cost of his son. Well, we sing earlier about the reckless love of God, and what we mean by that is that it looks reckless by any human standard, the amount of love and affection that God pours out on us. But God's not reckless in what he gives. God wasn't reckless in kind of just loving us, oh, whatever. No, God knew the full cost of loving us. He knew the full price that he would have to pay, but he thought it worth paying. That in spite of your sin, like that lost sheep that we were hearing about earlier, in spite of your sin, this is how God sees you. As you might look at yourself and think that you're a bit rubbish or unlovely, but God looks at you and he sees you as altogether lovely. He sees you individually and as part of his people as worth having, worth knowing, worth giving his son to save. He loves your face. He loves your smile. He loves the way your teeth sit. He loves the shape of your ears and the way that your hair looks in the morning. He loves the way that you sing and the way that your voice sounds. For all that we can get all kinds of weird feelings about, this bit about me is not great, but God loves you. He loves you. You were worth giving his son for. Jesus thought you were worth dying for. Part of the joy set before him as he endured the cross. The New Testament says that all of those who have given their lives to Jesus, we as the church, together with a bride of Christ. The final pages of the Bible, Revelation 21, 22. I'd encourage you, go and read it at home. The final pages of the Bible picture a day when the church will be fully and finally wedded to Jesus. And this is not talking about having sex with God. That's a kind of pagan idea. But it is saying that all that sex points to, intimacy and joy and satisfaction and pleasure and life, in some way, those things will be ours eternally with the one who loves us best. This is part of what this book is pointing us to. And it's for that reason that we can say that if you're single and you're going without sex because you want to honor God and say, I'm not going to do that and unless or until God gives me a spouse, we can say that if you're doing that, you're truly not missing out. For all the world would say the opposite, we can say you're not missing out. And we'll talk more about that in a few weeks. Please have conversations, come and talk to us, talk to one another about it in between. But sex and marriage are a good thing, but they're not the main thing. Knowing God is the main thing. Knowing God is ours now and eternally through Jesus who died for us, who lives forever so that we might know him. Sex and marriage are good, but they're pointing to something better yet. And we're going to take communion now and remember and celebrate that there is a wedding day coming where all those who have put their faith in Jesus are going to celebrate equally. There's going to be no bridesmaids on this wedding day, no always a bridesmaid, never a bride, no one waiting for their turn. We're going to be celebrating equally on the day that Jesus returns. And we're going to take communion as a reminder of Jesus whose body was broken, whose blood was poured out, who died, but who rose again and who is coming back one day.